Dajihao. So now let's talk about Leo. Leo is the cavity. The abdominal cavity is where the majority of the vital organs are located. And those are the stomach, liver, kidney, spleen, and gallbladder, and along with two important glands actually that have an important role in our energy levels, which are the pancreas and the adrenals. And it's in the cavity where we get all our vitality from, okay? The cavity holds the vital organs. These are the organs that support our life, and we cannot live without any one of them, right? And because there are more vital organs than in any other Rashi, Leo is the sign of vitality. Parasha specifically calls it the cavity, which is really the section that is above your hips but below your sternum. It's basically this kind of area here. And this is the area where the majority of our vital organs are, okay? When it comes to the spine, you can also find the last 4 thoracic vertebrae there. So Leo is the body part that gives vitality, right? People who do lots of work, people who are really strong, lots of the times they actually get some even bellies there. If you look at weightlifters, right, they always got a lot of power there. That section of their body is then very hard, and there's a lot of power there, right? Because Leo is a power center. And people who have power, who look powerful, who act powerfully, they invariably are going to create mass in this section of this body. That doesn't mean, that they're overweight and that they have a very soft belly or anything. No, it means that they really have this sort of hard, bigger stomach there, and it's very powerful, okay? People who are into bodybuilding, right? This part of their body just makes them look very masculine, powerful, and magnetic, right? And Leo is where all that power comes from. People with a strong Leo, they're powerful, they get their way, right? Because Leo is the sign of the king, right? And so they have power and they're magnetic, right? They have that vitality, they have the power to express themselves, and they're very self-confident. Now, there's no planets exalted or debilitated in Leo, right? Leo is the body part of power, and basically any planet in Leo is going to use that power, right? There's a lot of power that's going to be put behind that planet. And it's no surprise that those fiery planets are very happy in Leo, which are Sun, Mars, and Jupiter, right? The power that they already have will be increased in the sign of Leo. Whereas, Venus, which is the planet sort of to enjoy and to love, and, Saturn, which is sort of the planet that wants to be lazy and relax, they don't really fare that well, actually, in this powerful sign, right? Because they don't want to have that power, right? Venus is the diplomat. It wants to maybe represent someone of power, but it doesn't want to hold power all by herself, right? Saturn is the servant, right? It's just the opposite, actually, of being on top, right? Venus and Saturn, they don't do well in Leo. But all the other planets, specifically Sun, Mars, and Jupiter, they do, okay? And so this is one way that we can look at Leo, which is the center of power. Now, in general, if you see that people sort of damage certain body parts, you can just say, hey, you're dealing with a certain issue in your life, okay? If they hurt their breast area, then you know that, hey, you gotta deal with your emotional problems. If it's if there's a problem with the Leo area, then you know that they're dealing with power issues, right? If it's an affliction in the Gemini area, then you know that they're dealing with problems because they can't do what they want to do. And if it's in the face, the throat, the neck area, then a person has problems with getting their needs met, right? And of course, if it's in the head area, then the person has problems just governing and ruling their life, okay? So make these body parts really a priority in analyzing the signs, right? When you look at a sign, look at the planet and that rules that sign, and look at that body part, and try and figure out, okay, what is it that actually this body part represents, right? If you need to, you can also learn some basic biology, anatomy, to help you sort of understand, how the body functions, the different parts of the body, right? If you want to know more, that will definitely open up a whole new world of interpretation simply based on the Rashi. Yes, but simply, if you get a general idea about these body parts and how they relate to the signs, you will just know so much about them, okay? So the signs, yes, they represent, the fish body and the crab body and all these other things that we will talk about in in future classes. But they also represent really those different sections of the body, those different sections of the human body, right? And it is really those body parts that are containers that our consciousness uses and works through. And so, yeah, so that, hey, if there's sort of a problem in that, section of the horoscope, that this actually is sort of a certain section of the body, and the reason why they have this problem is, because of, their consciousness not being able to, express itself in a healthy way. So now let's talk about Virgo and the hips. So Virgo represents the hip area, and this is the area from the top of your hip bone down to your thigh bone. So you can just, find the top of your hip bone, and then you reach down until you find the top of your thigh bone, and that's the Virgo area. The lumbar vertebra of the spine falls into the Virgo area, and it's also actually the girdle area where the majority of the intestines are located. The intestines, they are primarily responsible for assimilating what is useful to the body while leaving what is not useful, okay? And this is the amazing trait of Virgo, right? Virgo is keeping what's good and ignoring what's bad, right? It says, okay, this is good, I'm gonna keep that. I'm assimilating that, I'm going to use it, and this is bad, and so I'm just going to ignore it. And Virgo is only going to ignore it. Virgo is not going to just throw it away, reject it, or sell it, or something like that, right? Because ignoring is what the intestines do, okay? When we get lower in the body, right, to the next sign of Libra, where the rectum and the bladder is, then we get another scenario, right? Because the bladder and the rectum, they are all about, hey, I'm gonna get rid of this, okay? And this is what Venus is gonna do through Libra, right? It is actually able to let go of something, okay? But Virgo is ruling the intestines, okay? And it will say, well, this is good, so I'm going to keep that, and this is bad, and so I'm going to ignore it, right? And people who have a healthy Virgo in their chart, right, they have healthy Virgo qualities, as they go through their life, they will say, oh wow, this is really valuable, this is something I can use, and so I can keep it, right? In the same ways that your intestines go, hey, wow, this nutrient, I can use and I can keep it, but this stuff, I can't use, and so I'm just, I'm just gonna ignore it and, let it move, through my body, okay? A healthy worker can really enjoy the good qualities of a person, right? They don't get bothered by all the other sort of, undesirable stuff, right? And this, of course, makes Virgo one of the best friends, right? Because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is, of course, the friendship, right? And Virgo is exalted in, Mercury is exalted in Virgo. And so actually it is Virgo, when it is healthy, that can be really your best friend, okay? Now, Venus is debilitated in Virgo, right? And what is happening is a person with Venus in Virgo, they might just throw people out of their life completely, right? Because Venus is a planet that makes decisions. I want this, I don't want this. And the thing that I don't want, I just, get rid of it, okay? And that's why Libra rules the part where we have the excretory organs, right? Our bladder and our rectum. Because Venus is sort of preparing for the things in our body to get evacuated, right? Virgo doesn't do that. But if you get Venus in Virgo, then a person has really a hard time taking what's good and ignoring the rest, right? Venus in Virgo has a hard time accepting themselves. And so they will be quick to judge a situation, people. Because why? Because they have their own unresolved issues, okay? So let's think about this in the context of Virgo a little bit more, okay? So Virgo is like, okay, I got some stuff within me, let's call it shit, because in this context, that's what we are actually going to deal with, because I'm using this word on purpose, because we are talking about the intestines here, okay? And so Virgo is going, well, there is that, stuff within me, and, it's okay, it's normal, right? This is a normal part of life. And I'm just gonna ignore it, and I'm gonna focus on the good stuff, right? The useful stuff, right? The stuff that can help me, support me, nourish me, that makes my life really good, okay? But now, all of a sudden, we drop Venus in Virgo. And what is happening now, the person says, okay, that's me, and I have all this stuff in my life, and that is really a problem, right? I have all this bad stuff in my life, and now it becomes a real problem, right? And why is it like this? Because Venus's sense of self-worth is diminished, right, when it's debilitated, right? And so now for them, all those things become a real issue, right? And then naturally, when we then think bad about ourselves, we are then gonna see the same in others, right? We think, oh, this person has all of those problems, and I have to fix this person, and I can't accept this person, right? But really what's happening is they actually have all of that within themselves, right? Otherwise, they won't be able to see it in another person, right? But what is happening is they don't like this about themselves, and then they basically just can't accept it also with another person. And this is really one of the big problems when Venus is debilitated in Virgo. And it really stems from this lack of self-love, right? This lack of self-acceptance, right? And then when Venus is debilitated in Virgo, of course, that makes it really hard for there to be acceptance and love in the marriage, right? It just becomes sort of this endless story of criticizing the other person, criticizing each other. But in the end, no one can really love that person because they don't even feel like that they're worthy of being loved. Okay? Venus, on the other hand, through the next sign of Libra, is really the planet of learning how to work with people and bring the best out in people, right? To see the good in people. Libra is all about figuring out how to create win-win situations, okay? And the way that actually Venus does it is really beautiful, just as Venus is. And that is that a person is actually able to take the undesirable things and turn them into something really useful and fulfilling. This is Venus's ability through Libra, right? It's almost like you take organic garbage and you turn it into fertilizer, right? Right? You have all of this, you cook and you have sort of just all of this organic garbage, and then you use it to make compost, so that that can be then used as a fertilizer, right? And how is Venus really able to do that? It is able to do that through love, right? Because through love we can offer the best to each other, right? Love actually is really like, it's almost like magic, because it really allows us to bring the best out of another person by really taking that which we would consider not really that great and someone other making it attractive, okay? And Venus in Virgo really has a hard time doing that, because there's no love, there's no appreciation. And so then when there's no love and appreciation, well, what is left then? Well, and of course for Venus in Virgo that is pretty obvious. There's a lot of undesirable things that are still there and that are a real problem, right? Now, when Virgo is actually healthy, let's say Mercury is there, which is either in own or exaltation, then Mercury is able to sort of develop ability. It is able to find information, to investigate, right? And then it can understand, okay, this is actually really good. I keep that. That's bad, and so I'm just going to ignore it. And the way that Mercury functions, he is like, well, that's just, why would I bother with this if it's not good for me? And Mercury can literally just totally write this off, right? He doesn't think about it anymore, right? It doesn't bother him anymore. He doesn't need to get rid of it. He is just able to say, okay, let it be there. I don't mind. It's not what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for, and that's what I like. And all the other stuff, I don't really mind. Okay. And so when Mercury is exalted, he has like this amazing ability to really discriminate and see what is valuable, to appreciate that, and to just ignore the rest. And this is actually the amazing ability of Mercury, right? Mercury wants to be efficient, and he wants to find out which works, which is useful, and he's going to use that, and he's just going to forget about the rest. Why would he bother with that? It doesn't matter if it's there or not. For Mercury, it just doesn't. For Mercury, it doesn't matter, right? Now, when people bother too much about what they shouldn't, because it doesn't do any good in their life, right? That means there is an afflicted Virgo in some ways, okay? That's why sometimes Virgo has a bad reputation, because when you get afflicted planets in Virgo, then a person is just dealing with things that aren't useful and aren't important, okay? And what's the worst planet to have in Virgo? Well, Venus is debilitated there, and that surely will cause problems eventually, right? It's also, delighted by its friend Mercury, right? So if Mercury is nice placed and it can actually give a lot of nice stuff to Venus, right? It delights Venus, then hey, a person with Venus in Virgo, they can actually have a materially very worthwhile marriage, right? They might actually find that, wow, my marriage is actually really good. But, from time to time, that lack of, self-worth will come up, and then they will just not feel loved that much, right? Or they just won't feel that good, right? Even though they might actually have a very, you could say financially rewarding relationship, right? And so, yeah, so that is always sort of going to cause trouble a little bit, but actually Venus in Virgo can be manageable, okay? Because it has that delight of Mercury. So, and of course Venus, we have to see all, Saturn is also a friend to Venus that can help out. And of course Jupiter, if he's conjunct, he can also delight Venus as well. So we have to just see the whole picture, how Venus in Virgo plays out. Now, but what I consider actually worse than Venus in Virgo is Mars, okay? Mars really can't function in that Virgo environment productively, right? Because it is not able to say, hey, I just focus on the good stuff and I ignore the rest. Now, he wants to literally, he has a big opinion about what is bad. He needs to tell everyone, he needs to fight it. All the bad stuff that he considers is just not useful, okay? And so people with Mars in Virgo, they really like to fight a lot. They like to argue against things that are not worthy, that are not actually worthy of their attention, actually, These are actually the things that are no good, that they shouldn't argue about, but with Mars in Virgo, that's what they still do. And interesting enough is, sometimes, Mars in Virgo people, they actually take what is good from other people, right? Let's say they go to a teacher and they study from him, they take the stuff that they consider good, but then somehow or another, they totally criticize him and condemn actually that person about the things they don't like, right? Instead of just taking what's useful and ignoring the rest, they go on this total crusade and fight them, okay? But a healthy Virgo understands that nothing is pure, nothing is perfect, everything has problems. And so if I study with this person, I'm just gonna take what's really good about them, and I'm not gonna concern myself with the rest. And this would actually be sort of a healthy Virgo attitude, right? Because no one is able to say something that is all true, specifically actually true for any one person, okay? And with a healthy Virgo, a person is able to think like that. Wow, this is really amazing. I can learn so much from this person. This is so wonderful, and I'm just so happy to be here because this person is, can give me a lot of information. It's very nicely structured, and they have developed this whole system, and I can really develop myself, this great skill here, and accumulate so much knowledge, and all the rest I'm not gonna expect. I'm just gonna ignore the things that are not that great. And in this way, a person with a healthy Virgo, they will just be the best student actually, right? They will, because they can appreciate all the good things and absorb them and use themselves. And all the other things, they will not really bother so much about with respect to, that teacher, okay? And that is really what friendship is, right? Mercury is friendship, and Mercury is exalted in Virgo. Friendship is really the ability to say that I take all the good things that the person has, the things that I can use with this person, that we have, a good friendship with, right? Some mutual interests or some other way that we have fun with together. And I'm just gonna not get involved with the other stuff that I don't like. It's not my business, you know. And so I'm just not gonna worry about that, okay? But Mars in Virgo will, right? So that's why Mars in Virgo, even Mars in Gemini people, they are just constantly involved in problems, right? They are just, you know, there's just always sort of conflicts with people, arguments, and they're always frustrated, right? And that's why it's very, very important that you look towards the friends of Mars to see if they can help out Mars. So Virgo is the body part that has to function to pick up what's good and ignore the rest. And Venus in Virgo is happy to do that, right? Because it's delighted there. Venus can actually pick up some of the good things in Virgo, right? And to make that really a worthwhile and enjoyable experience. But then again, Venus is not really active, right? There is, you know, there's gonna be, you know, Venus is just not going to able to perform, you know, the responsibilities properly there, right? And one of the major responsibilities is that it cannot understand how it can actually turn sort of the bad things into good things, right? But we will see next when we talk about Libra, which is ruled by Venus, that one of the very important parts actually of Venus is taking that what's not useful and making it useful, right? Venus in Virgo can't do that because it is sleeping. It's happy that it has all that good stuff, but somehow or another, that is just not increasing their worth, okay? And so that eventually just becomes a problem. Venus in Virgo person, yes, they can sort of accumulate and they can get a lot of good things, right? They can live a good material life, but then all of that is just not going to increase their sense of self-worth, okay? So imagine your life, you know, if, you know, that is that of a person with Venus in Virgo, right? They are just happy with what they have and appreciate all those good things. But they're gonna ignore the rest, you know, the rest that they can't use, that somehow are not important for them. And so, you know, what's happening is they have a full fridge of food, they got a really nice house, and they got all the good stuff in the house, but then, you know, behind the house, you know, there's a pile of garbage, there's all sorts of trash here and there around the house. You don't even have to look in the basement. And so, but for them it's just okay. It's fine. It's there. You know, they don't bother with it. But what would happen if they would take all the trash? They would make it useful. Then perhaps they can sell it. And then they would get out, you know, so much. And then they would turn it into something that actually has value. Okay? But this is exactly what happens with Venus in Virgo. It's not getting its full worth in life because it's not finding a way to make the trash worthwhile. Okay? Too many things that are bad and that seem to just pile up more and more and become more and more smelly and unbearable, you know, happen in their life, right? But life is such that we have valuable things and then we have those things that are kind of seen as useless. And we also need to learn to turn those useless things into something wonderful, right? So that we can love and enjoy life completely, right? And this is actually what happens in Libra. Now, again, Venus isn't really sad in Virgo because it gets a lot of good things, but it definitely feels stuck, you know, with the life it has, right? And that's why it starts to be really sort of critical a whole lot, right? Because life is just not going the way that they want. And the reason is because they're just not going to get as much worth out of, you know, out of their experiences in life than they need to in order to be happy, right? Imagine if you can take everything bad in your life and you turn it into something good, okay? Venus in Virgo can't do that, but at least they can appreciate the good things that they have.